folks. This next segment, or rather next panel right here, is aptly named Live with Lewis. So please, ladies and gentlemen, here to interview Sony Music's Michael Paull is Omniphone Group's Executive Chairman, Rob Lewis. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up. It's Live with Lewis.
Thank you. So I'd like to welcome on stage Michael Paull, who I think most of you know here runs the digital business for Sony Music globally, world's second biggest record label. And I think following the discussions we had earlier today, we're keen to sort of move on a bit and actually talk about some of the issues that exist in the industry. So Sony, so first of all, Michael, Sony Corporation has a lot of areas in which it's involved in the music business. Clearly, it owns Sony Music fully. It's a 50-50 joint venture with Sony ATV, all those publishing rights. I think you control now, as a result of a deal that you negotiated, IOTA. And of course, there's now the Sony Q Music service, which is a kind of locker and also full on-demand streaming service. I suppose the first question I've had for you is just kind of, how does that sort of conflict work? When sort of Sony Corp turned up to Sony Music, which is owned by Sony Corp, and they said, hey, we'd like to kind of do a deal with you. Was that easy? Was that difficult? How did that all work out?
Right. I guess what I would say, Rob, is when we first started talking with Sony Corporation about them doing a music service, we were very excited at the interest that they had. They did see an opportunity where the digital music market was evolving and an opportunity for them to leapfrog where the business is today and go to where the business is going. And we engaged in a very good dialogue with them and trying to come up with what the product requirements would look like, how one would bring it to market, the scope of the service. So I think that was a very, very good process, and it was very productive. When it came to the actual commercial negotiations of the licenses, it was a slightly different situation where I think we were working very well with them, but because we are a music company and because we have an obligation to our artists to make sure that they get paid properly for the works that they create with their blood, sweat, and tears, we really had to have an arm's length negotiation where we had to be the steward for our artists.
So you couldn't give it away for free. You had to make sure the artists were sorted out, yeah?
We don't give our content away for free.
So
no.
do you think you've got as good a deal as the other major labels?
I wouldn't know what the other major labels' deals look like.
That would be anti-competitive, clearly. So Sony Corp have managed to. I mean, they've got a globally licensed service. They can roll out anywhere they want. They've got rights owners, publishers, all the other labels involved, independents, and they've got a locker service in there. And then we've got Google and Amazon, and they can't even manage in one country to get licensing for a legitimate locker service. So why can Sony do it and why can Amazon and Google not manage to pull that off?
I mean, I guess what I would say is that I think anybody can get a license to do a locker service if the type of locker service they want to put out in the marketplace makes sense both for the consumer as well as for the artists. And I think when Sony approached us about a locker service, just like many other companies that haven't come to market with a locker service but will in the not too distant future, securing a license was not a incredibly difficult pursuit.
So you'd say that it's reasonably easy for somebody who is sort of consulting with the industry and trying to make it work for the industry as well as the consumer to actually go away and get a license? Not easy.
Yeah, I would say it's very doable as long as they work with the rights holders and create something that we believe is going to be compelling to the consumer. We think it's really important when we look at the opportunity for locker services that the consumer wins, that the friction that currently exists in the buying process for MP3s is eliminated through these lockers. We view this as a really exciting way to grow the MP3 sales market, as well as a way to create a new revenue stream from a charge for the premium lockers.
And do you think these kind of lockers also will ultimately lead to consumers not only moving away from piracy but also moving into kind of access models where they just got access to everything?
I think that some consumers will be very happy with the content that they own, and they will want to access that content that they purchase and own from a variety of devices. I think other consumers, once they start to realize how simple and easy it is to access their content, will then decide that the content that they have is not enough, and that they want to experiment with a lot more content, and then this will become a gateway into an unlimited music service.
Okay, so if we were talking about, I mean, let's just imagine we're looking into our crystal ball. We're five years in the future. So there's clearly lots of companies, particularly with app stores and smartphones and all these devices that are connected, who are trying to get into this space. It's, you know, there's Google, there's Amazon, there's Sony, there's apparently Apple, there's a whole range of companies. But, you know, which of these services are going to be successful? What is it about the individual service provider or the service that will make it actually work and actually be sustainable and win?
When I look at all of the different service providers and try to assess who the winners will be and who the losers will be, the first thing I look for is the consumer experience. I think one of the difficulties or challenges that we've had in trying to build a digital music business is the first step we took was really trying to replicate the traditional physical business in a digital environment, and perhaps even replicate it in an environment where the technology didn't even fully support essentially the value that physical media represented. In order to be successful, I believe services are going to have to delight the consumer. They're going to have to give them something. They're going to have to love it. They're going to have to not just accept technological innovation, but enable the consumer to have a better experience because
so they're
of the
kind of looking at it
technology.
and they're going, I love turning this on, I love discovering music this way, I love the way it works, and they look at a piracy situation and they just go, you've got to be out of your mind. That's what you're saying.
I think they're going to need simplicity. So when we looked at the CD business, it was a very simple business. You went into a retail store, you bought a CD, and any device that you owned that took a CD, you'd throw it in and it would work. It was awesome.
It's easy.
It made a lot of sense.
Anyone
and
could
guess
do it.
what? People bought the devices and people bought the CDs. Now fast forward into the digital music environment where, depending on where you bought the content and depending on what device you were trying to play back the content on, you may or may not have been able to have a simple and easy experience. So, for example, I spend a bunch of money on buying MP3s, but I'd like to listen to them in my car. If I don't have the right jack to plug in my device, it doesn't work. I think as access models become more prevalent and as broadband rates, over Wi-Fi and over data networks become more prevalent, people are simply going to be able to enjoy their content, whether they subscribe to a rental service or whether they buy it. They're going to know that they're going to get to enjoy it wherever they're at.
So these, I mean, I think a lot of people in this room, clearly from various parts of Asia, have heard about what's been launched in the US, unlicensed services and other services launched by Sony and other European services that have been mentioned. Is this stuff going to come out here to Asia? I mean, when can people here actually start enjoying this stuff?
I think many of the companies that are engaged in these businesses are very actively looking to bring them to Asia. So
Like
to
soon?
be very direct, I very much believe that Asia will see a lot of these services, whether it's services that are looking to sell MP3s, whether it's services that are looking to sell unlimited music subscriptions, or whether it's bundles where phones or devices come with music. I think you're going to see all of these models proliferate in Asia.
But some of these kind of big name services which go out on vast numbers of devices and have big brands, I mean, if we put our crystal ball in front of us again, and we imagine we're at Music Matters next year at Singapore, is there going to be one service, 2, 3, 4? I mean, how much are consumers here really going to have the selection that they have in North America and Europe?
I think there's the potential to do so because I can't speak for those companies. Yeah. I can't speak for what the non-recorded music rights requirements are or how long it will take to secure them. I really can't answer the question.
Okay. But you believe through talking to your partners they have that intention, and Sony Music's supportive in doing that?
Absolutely.
So you're kind of granting global rights when you can, so hopefully they can go out and roll it out. So one of the issues, I think, talking to some of the people hear about a lot of these access models and locker services we've spoken about, and particularly the access models, is there is some concern in countries where perhaps they've never done such a service, that perhaps it could be damaging overall to the business. Could it, kill off CD sales? Could it kill off the a la carte business? Is there a kind of any kind of experience you can share with us, or kind of operational experience you can share with us, be it statistical or anecdotal, as to when these services have launched in places in Europe or North America, do kind of a la carte sales suddenly fall off the cliff, or do CD sales fall off the cliff? What actually generally happens?
I think that when we look at these unlimited music subscription services, the correct way to look at it is not to say, are these businesses growing and are those other businesses declining? The question that at least I look at is the overall business growing? Is the market growing? So if one business declines slightly while another business grows significantly, and the net result is a bigger music market, which allows us to invest more in artist development and invest more in marketing and promotion, that's a positive thing. And based on the market dynamics that we have seen in the US as well as in Europe, we believe that as long as we're able to bring these services to the mass market, which I believe we will be able to do, we will be growing the pie rather than shrinking it.
So we're delivering it to the mass market, and that's, as you said earlier, about user experience, about scale, about having parties that can invest, which is why I suppose you're so focused on making sure you get commitment from partners when you're rolling out services, and because ultimately you need to make sure they're going to fly, yeah?
Absolutely. I think when we're looking at partnerships that we're doing to roll out new services all over the world, the first and most important thing that at least I look at is, what is the service? How will it work? How will the consumer experience it? Will it be simple? Will it be easy? Is the marketing message something that the masses can understand? And then we start looking at things like the business model and the economics, because you can get the business model right, you can get the economics right, but if the consumer rejects it, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, and so we've sat on this stage, I mean, you've sat on this stage, I've sat on this stage on panels where there have been new services that are apparently going to change the world, are going to be silver bullets. Like, I think a lot of record industry execs stood there saying, Nokia comes with music, free unlimited music, download as much as you like, free with the handset, it's going to change the industry, the end of piracy as we know it. And some of these services didn't stick. So why do we suddenly believe that this new generation of services are going to stick and are going to actually work?
From my perspective, I think the technology required to make a really, really excellent digital music service didn't exist until not too long ago. The introduction and proliferation of smartphones,
Which is big in this region, yeah? Very big in this region.
The introduction and proliferation of devices that are internet connected, the fact that applications are able to reach all of these devices regardless of the ecosystem. Essentially, the walled gardens that existed have now been opened up.
The carriers aren't messing it up anymore.
I think the carriers are great marketing partners and great enablers, and they're very good at selling to consumers.
Yeah, okay. So I had Rob Wells on this stage a little bit earlier today, and he said, Pandora, he said, in the US, he didn't consider it a business partner of Universal's. He was very, very negative. He felt that actually they weren't working in harmony with the industry. How do you feel about Pandora?
I think Pandora has been quite successful. They have built a huge audience. They have built a brand that consumers respect. And they're actually making quite a bit of money for the recorded music industry. That being said, I think that the recorded music companies are not being properly compensated.
Yeah.
I think that Pandora needs to evolve its service in order to remain competitive by introducing premium tiers. I think that the market is going to move, and Pandora will either move with the market, or I think a new competitor will come in. So for example, in the US, we are seeing a lot of momentum with service providers that are creating interactive radio experiences that are Pandora-esque,
right.
DMCA compliant, we call it. And then they're creating premium tiers where perhaps you would get an ad-free experience, perhaps get better usage rules, and then leading into an unlimited music service. And I think those
so
services...
there's kind of an upsell. So you get a consumer hooked on something that's either free or cheap, that kind of where you can discover stuff, and it's kind of radio style, you can skip, but you haven't got full on demand, and then you use that experience and the fact that somebody's using it day in, day out to get them into a premium service where you can start making for your artists sensible amounts of money, yeah?
Right. The interesting thing about what Pandora has done, which at least I've respected, is when I think about digital music subscription services, I tend to liken it to the television business, which is where I had come from. And when I think about how the networks business evolved, when people come home from work, imagine a world where you sit down on your couch and you turn on your television and you then get a screen that says, what would you like to watch? And the only way to relax and watch a TV program or a movie would be to go through a menu and start selecting exactly what you think you want to watch.
As in you only had video on demand.
Exactly. That's actually the paradigm that we created in digital music, where we created these extreme lean-forward experiences without a lean-back option.
And a lot of consumers don't even know what they want to search for. I mean, you and I may know a lot about music, and most of the people here do, but ultimately a lot of people just, they're in a certain mood. They have no idea what to play at their party. They want someone else to do that, and ideally actually the service does it for them, yeah?
Right. And that's why I think what we've learned from this, when we've looked at the data and the usage patterns of interactive radio versus on-demand music services, we realized that to have a successful unlimited music service, you needed to provide both. You needed to provide that lean-back experience that was radio-esque, as well as the ability to listen to whatever you would like.
So you can do whatever you want, but you can also have a much more lean-back experience it, change channel, skip track kind of experience.
Exactly.
Makes a huge amount of sense. So, and you think those kind of services will be out here in Asia in the not too distant future?
Yes.
Okay, that's very positive. So I've obviously spoken, I've now interviewed 3 of the 4 major labels today, as well as the panel. You know, clearly there are divergent views on various issues like Pandora, for example. But, you know, in terms of the core business, are all these labels basically the same? I mean, are you basically doing the same job as Rob Wells or Michael Nash? What's different about Sony Music compared with Universal Music?
I don't have a view into what Rob Wells or Michael Nash do all day. What I think we at Sony Music have spent a lot of time on is really trying to figure out how do we develop the products and put them into market in a way that will be very successful.
Digital products.
Digital products. We're spending a lot of time not just thinking about how do we create services and enable partners to put services in the market that will leverage, you know, social networks and leverage technology. We're also figuring out new digital products. So for all of our artist releases, we're now putting out a mobile application. And for all of those mobile applications, we're working on add-on products that will create new revenue streams from our assets. And we're spending a lot of time really working on this and thinking it through so we can really delight the consumer.
So you're getting more than just the music. You're getting artist biographies or image work. I mean, give us an idea of the kind of stuff you're working on.
So what we want to do is create an experience. At least when I was a kid growing up, and I would go to the record store and buy a vinyl record.
You really don't look that old, Michael.
I know, thank goodness. But the reality is, buying the record provided multiple experiences for me. It was something that I could listen to, but I also got to enjoy the artwork. I also got to enjoy all of the other things that came with it. And actually, when I was done, I would put it in my room.
It's something you're proud of. It says something about you.
It was a form of self-expression. And interestingly, when we've moved from the physical world into the digital world, that self-expression went away. It became only about the listening experience. And a lot of the product development thinking that we've been doing is, how do we bring that back?
Well, I look forward to seeing, so this is something Sony Music specifically are working on, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, well, we look forward to finding out what you've got up your sleeves. So just very quickly, does anyone have any questions for Michael, representing the second biggest record label in the world?
Actually, this last quarter, the biggest.
Very good. Well, we don't have Rob in the room to actually dispute that. Any questions out there? I don't think we do, actually, slightly bizarrely. So I've got one final question for you before we wrap up, since we've got apparently 36 seconds left. So we talk about the decline of the CD, but there's a lot of places where the CD is still a vast proportion of the revenues. And we've clearly got all of these cloud-based services coming and all of these massive companies bringing this stuff to market. When are we going to get to the stage when kind of digital is the majority of what we talk about and the CD is the kind of legacy business? I mean, is it in 1 year, 10 years, 20 years? I mean, is digital growing quickly enough to actually become a business that you can survive on?
I think digital has already become a very large business. That being said, I think that there's segments of consumers who are going to want CDs. There's a whole generation of people that love their CDs and are going to continue to love their CDs. And then there's other generations of people that have never even bought a CD and they're only going to buy digital. And I think the ecosystem will continue to evolve towards digital, but I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
But in 5 years' time, I mean, is it going to be primarily a physical business or primarily a digital business?
I think in 5 years' time it will definitely be leaning more towards a digital business, but whether or not it's the majority of revenue is to be determined.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for sharing your thoughts with us. And perhaps we can all give Michael a quick round of applause.
Thank you, Rob.